Some of you are fighting battles no one sees. You wake up, and before you even move a muscle, your mind is already in overdrive, racing with insecurity, self-doubt, regret, or fear of not being good enough. You carry wounds that never quite made it to words. People around you see a smile, a posture of strength, maybe even ambition, but behind your eyes is a storm you've been managing all alone. I know that weight. I know how exhausting it is to perform okay when your insides are screaming for rescue. But hear me now. You are not too far gone, too broken, or too late to take your life back. There are days your chest aches before your feet hit the floor. You wake up already at war with your thoughts, already drained by a fight that hasn't even started yet. You look in the mirror and barely recognize the fire that once lit your eyes. Life has tossed you around, stripped you bare, and you're holding on to your sanity by a thread so thin it feels like one deep breath could break it. And yet, you're still here. You're still breathing. That is not weakness. Oh, weakness. That is evidence of a strength so profound, so sacred, that even the storms couldn't drown it. You've cried behind closed doors, smiled through heartbreak, shown up while breaking inside, and pushed through with no applause. You have chosen to keep moving when everything in your world told you to stop. And that is what separates survivors from warriors. Survivors endure, warriors rise, and today this is your rise. But to rise fully, to walk in the fullness of who you are called to be, you must take back control, not from the world, not from people, but from the loud, misleading voice of your emotions. Because emotions are real, but they were never meant to lead. They were meant to move through you, not move you off course. Feelings are messengers, not masters. They alert you, but they must never arrest you. If you let your fear dictate your decisions, you will shrink every time destiny calls. If you let anger speak first, it will cost you relationships meant to grow you. If sadness becomes your compass, it will lead you to settle in places you were never meant to stay. Emotions are like the weather, changing constantly, unpredictable, and powerful. But would you ever build your house on a storm? Would you anchor your identity to a wind? No, you must be grounded in truth, in the divine blueprint of your life, not in how you feel moment to moment. When your emotions rise, pause and listen, but don't obey. Feel them fully, then ask, what is my purpose telling me to do next? Not what my pain prefers, but what my calling commands. Every victory begins with a decision not to bow to a feeling. The ones who win are not the ones who never feel. It's the ones who feel everything and choose to obey purpose anyway. Stillness doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means discipline. Sometimes when the emotion inside you screams to run, to react, to retreat, the holiest act you can offer is to be still and trust. Your mind may swirl in anxiety, but your spirit can hold the line in obedience. That's power. Power that isn't noisy or dramatic, but stable and unwavering. Emotional self-control is not about suppression. It's about submission. Not to your mood, but to your mission. You don't have to pretend you're not sad, frustrated, tired, or afraid. You just have to decide those feelings don't get the final say. When a ship sails through rough waters, the captain doesn't throw the compass out because the waves are high. They tighten their grip. They steady their focus. They adjust the sails, but not the destination. And that is what you must do when your emotions crash like waves against the ship of your soul. Adjust, but don't abandon. Every destiny comes with an internal battle plan. And the number one enemy it has to conquer is self-sabotage through emotional impulsivity. You were not made to chase comfort, you were made to carry calling, and calling isn't comfortable. It won't always make you feel good, but it will always make you feel whole. Don't confuse ease with alignment. Some of the greatest moments of alignment feel hard. They feel heavy. They feel like stretching, breaking, reshaping. And that's exactly what emotional discipline allows you to experience. Transformation instead of stagnation. The difference between staying stuck and stepping forward is one word: control. Control is not resistance, it's redirection. It's redirection. You redirect your pain into purpose, your anger into focus, your fear into courage. And when you do, life begins to bow to your decision. Doors open not because you felt brave, but because you acted with authority. Let me remind you, your feelings are not the voice of God. They are the voice of your experience, your wounds, your doubts, and your history. But God speaks in vision, not emotion. He speaks in strategy, not spirals. And if you want to walk in His will for your life, you have to turn down the volume on every feeling that contradicts your faith. Emotions have a place, but not on the throne. And every time you place them there, your future waits until you decide to reclaim it. How many times have you almost broke through, but your fear got louder than your faith? How many times have you almost said yes, but your insecurity whispered no? How many dreams have died not because you weren't called, but because you followed a mood instead of the mission? Enough. Today, the pattern breaks. Today, the storm inside you doesn't get to decide your steps. You do. You don't need to feel ready. You need to feel responsible. Responsible for the promise over your life. Responsible for the people attached to your purpose. Responsible for the younger version of you who prayed for the life you're building now. That version of you didn't pray for feelings. They prayed for freedom. And freedom comes when you say, I will not be moved by emotion. I will be led by purpose. That is where the miracles begin. That is where growth ignites. That is where fear bows. And that is where your power awakens. You are not your emotions. You are not your temporary reactions. You are not your temporary reactions. You are not your overwhelm. You are the steward of something far greater. And once you start walking in that authority, everything around you aligns, not to how you feel, but to who you really are. Some things in life are louder than words, and louder than wounds, and louder than wounds. Not because they scream, but because they echo. Pain echoes. Rejection echoes. Cruelty echoes. But louder than any of them, louder than every storm that tried to shatter you, louder than every room you were left out of, is the way you responded. The world sees what happened to you, but what defines you is what came next. What you did, what you chose, how you rose. You see, life will hand you events, some expected, some unfair, some brutal. But you don't become the event. You become what you choose to carry from it. That's where the volume lives. That's where the power grows. When life whispered to you, you're not enough, and you stood in the mirror and said, I still am. When they mocked your difference and you chose not bitterness, but bravery. When you cried in secret and still showed up in public with kindness in your eyes. That's the kind of loud the world needs. That's the kind of loud the world can't ignore. Because your response will always speak louder than what happened. Your response isn't a reaction. It's your redemption. It's your redemption. There will be moments when you don't feel like responding with grace. When everything inside you wants to match pain with pain, hate with hate, silence with silence. But don't forget, you were never built to mirror darkness. You were made to disarm it. Not with rage, but with resilience. Not with revenge, but with radiance. Anyone can become what hurt them, but it takes courage to become what heals others. That's not weakness. That's not weakness. That's power. It's the kind of power that doesn't need validation because it's rooted in purpose. You don't need the world to agree with your path when your soul knows it's right. Respond with strength when life throws shade. Respond with truth when people lie. Respond with boldness when the world tries to shrink you. Let your response speak of who you are, not of what happened to you. When you respond with grace, people may call you naive. Let them. But because grace is not softness, it's strength under control. It's proof that you're not being dragged by your past, but driven by your future. Life has tested you. Yes, it's tested you. Yes, but you're still here. And that means something. That means you passed the test. That means the next page is still yours to write. Don't let anyone convince you that your story is over just because you're in a painful chapter. The pain is real. The wound is deep. But your response is deeper. Your response is deep. Let it echo louder than the insults, louder than the abandonment, louder than the loss. They may have caused the pain, but they don't get to control the echo. You do. Choose every day who you're going to be. Not what happened, not what they said, but who you are. And here's the truth. People are watching your response more than your circumstance. Because your circumstance may inspire sympathy, but your response ignites belief. Someone's waiting to see if you'll keep going. Not because you owe it to them, but because your life is a lighthouse. And lighthouses don't shine for applause. They shine so others don't crash. So shine, respond, rise. Again and again and again. There was a time when you didn't think you could become more than the pain you were in. A time when the dreams felt too far away, and the mirror felt like a battlefield between who you were and who you wished you could be. You kept showing up quietly, even when no one clapped. You kept trying, even when everything in your mind whispered that it was pointless. And in those moments, the ones no one sees, the ones when your heart is breaking, but your hands are still working, you were building something. You were planting the seed of a future you thought only belonged to other people. People who were born stronger, smarter, better. But that belief was a lie. It was never about being born ready. It was always about choosing discipline. Choosing to keep walking even when your legs shook. Yes, choosing the hard path because the easy one felt like giving up on yourself. One small decision, then another. And suddenly you're not the same. You don't even recognize the old version of you. Because discipline builds someone you never imagined you could become. And now that person is you. Discipline isn't glamorous. It doesn't show up in headlines or get praised in the moment. It looks like repetition. It feels like silence. It lives in early mornings, quiet sacrifices, and doing the thing you promised yourself you'd do long after the motivation left. Motivation might get you started, but discipline builds the life you stay in. The version of you that shows up even when it hurts, even when you're tired, even when no one is watching. That version is the hero, not the one who posts wins, but the one who practices in the dark. That's the version that outlives doubt, that rewrites the identity you used to believe you were stuck with. Because you are not your past, you are not the pain, you are not the labels, you are the effort, you are the choice, you are the one who kept showing up. Every time you choose discipline, you're casting a vote for the future version of you. Not the one shaped by wounds, but the one shaped by strength. The one who knows the success isn't loud, it's layered. It's built moment by moment with every act of obedience to your own potential. You don't need to do everything right. You just need to keep doing the right things long enough for them to shape you. One day you'll look back and realize that the small things weren't small. They were everything. Waking up early, choosing water over comfort, saying no to distractions, showing up when you were discouraged. That's the cement. That's the scaffolding of greatness. That's how you build the person you thought only existed in dreams. Discipline doesn't remove the pain. It gives the pain purpose. It says, if I'm gonna hurt, let it be for progress. If I'm going to be tired, let it be from trying. If I'm going to struggle, let it be towards strength. And in that posture, you no longer run from the hard, you run through it. Because the person you're becoming is stronger than the storm you're in. And not because life got easier, but because you got braver. You taught your nervous system how to keep going when it wanted to shut down. You trained your mind to believe in outcomes it hadn't seen yet. That's discipline. That's discipline. Not just consistency in action, but faithfulness in identity. You kept watering your soul with hope long before the results came. And yes, there will be days when you break, when you question if it's even worth it, when you feel like the version of you you're trying to build is too far away. The version of you you're trying to build is too far away. But I promise you, those are the days that matter most. Because discipline is tested when doubt knocks. And if you can answer with action, not just feeling, you win. Not because the feelings are gone, but because they don't drive you anymore. You're driven by something deeper, a vision of yourself whole, healed, disciplined, and powerful. Not because it's easy, not because you were born confident, but because you chose not to betray yourself. You don't owe anyone perfection. You don't owe anyone explanation. But you do owe yourself consistency. The hard truth is this. Your habits are speaking louder than your goals. You can dream all day, but your discipline is the only proof of what you truly believe is possible. Every time you keep going, you're teaching yourself that the impossible version of you is real. Not someday now. You're building them brick by brick. And while others may clap when the results show, you'll know the real victory was in the days no one saw. So the next time you feel like quitting, remember who you're building. Think about the version of you who walks into rooms with quiet confidence. Who isn't swayed by storms because they've survived worse. That version of you isn't a fantasy. They're the reward of today's discipline. And if you keep going, you'll meet them. One morning, you'll wake up and realize you became someone you once thought was impossible. And it won't be luck. It'll be the result of every early morning you didn't snooze. Every hard choice you didn't run from. Every time you bet on yourself when doubt screamed louder. Discipline did that. You did that. So keep choosing the heart that heals. Keep showing up with shaky hands and steady heart. Keep building when no one sees. Keep whispering to yourself that who you're becoming is worth the effort. Because discipline will take you where motivation never could. Discipline will become the voice that reminds you. We don't quit anymore. We rise. Sometimes the loudest voices aren't the ones outside of you. They're the ones that echo inside when no one's watching. And it's in those quiet moments when the world isn't clapping or commenting that the truth creeps in. You are the one you've been waiting for, not the version of you that everyone approves of. Not the one that gets all the likes, but the one behind the curtain. The raw one. The real one. The one that was hurt, left, dismissed, misunderstood. And yet is still here, breathing, still beating, still trying. I don't know what they said to you. I don't know what they made you believe. Maybe you were taught to shrink. Maybe you were made to feel like your softness made you weak, your tears made you unstable, or your silence made you forgettable. Maybe someone told you love had to be earned, that presence had to be proven, that your worth was somehow negotiable. But today, I need you to hear this, and I need you to hold on to it, even if your voice shakes when you repeat it to yourself. You do not have to abandon yourself to belong. Healing doesn't happen when everyone says they're sorry. Healing doesn't wait for the apology you may never get. Get? Healing begins when you become your own refuge, your own advocate, your own protector. When you stop handing over the pen of your self-worth to people who only showed up to rewrite your story in ink that wasn't theirs to hold. You want to heal? Start by becoming a place where your own truth is safe to land. Because healing happens when you become your own safe place. 1. Your inner voice sets the tone for your inner world. You cannot live in peace if the voice inside you is still at war. Healing starts when your internal dialogue becomes kinder than your external validation. It's not easy. It takes practice, especially if you were raised or shaped in environments that made your inner critic louder than your inner cheerleader. But here's the truth. If you wouldn't speak that harshly to someone you love, you have no business speaking that way to yourself. You become your safe place by training your voice to be softer, more honest, and more patient. This doesn't mean you deny where you need to grow. It means you guide yourself with compassion, not condemnation. You won't heal by punishing yourself into change. You heal when your self-talk says, you are still worthy, even in this mess, or you're allowed to not have it all together and still be going somewhere beautiful. The frequency of your healing is set by the frequency of your voice. If your tone is cold, critical, and chaotic, your nervous system never learns to rest. Speak safety into yourself. That's where healing begins. 2. Boundaries are the blueprint of emotional safety. It's not selfish to protect your peace. It's survival. And if you're going to become your own safe place, you have to learn the sacred power of a no. Not just to others, but sometimes to the versions of yourself that tolerated too much, stayed too long, or kept quiet to avoid conflict. Avoid conflict. Boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They are doors with locks to make sure only love that respects you gets in. We heal when we stop bleeding for people who would not offer us a bandage. We heal when we stop calling chaos a passion and start calling peace our standard. That doesn't make you cold. That doesn't make you difficult. It makes you aware. You're no longer desperate to be chosen because you've chosen yourself first. And when you choose you, when you say, I matter enough to walk away from what hurts me, you build a home within your soul where healing can grow. Boundaries are how you reparent the parts of you that never felt protected. You become your own guardian, and slowly, the frightened child in you learns to breathe again. Safety doesn't always come from others. Sometimes safety starts with a simple, quiet vow whispered in the dark. I will never abandon me again. 3. Regulate, don't react. That's how you break the cycle. You want to know how to become your safe place. Learn to sit with your emotions without becoming them. Your anxiety, your anger, your sadness, they are real, but they are not the whole of you. You are not weak because you feel deeply. You are not broken because your emotions sometimes flood. You're human. But here's where healing happens. When you stop reacting from your wounds and start responding from your awareness. Regulation doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you start leading. You lead your nervous system through breath, through pauses, through intentional space between stimulus and response. You pause and say, is this reaction from today? Or is it a ghost from yesterday screaming through me? That question alone can save relationships, preserve peace, and protect progress. You become your own safe place when you refuse to abandon yourself in storms. You stay. You hold your own hand. You say, we're not going to explode, we're going to exhale. That's the energy that heals not just you, but the legacy you pass on.